honest, every kid in elementary school is a struggling writer, right? And it's because they have not been taught how to get those thoughts on paper. I have 4 kids of my own. I've been an educator for over 20 years, and I've done nothing but writing specifically. And I have a very simple approach to writing that can get any kid writing in a very short amount of time. And you're going to see that it's a very structured approach to writing. And I'll kind of go through this as I'm going through the slides. I'm just going to touch on things, so take note. And if you want more information on any specific slide or skill, just make a note and email me, and I'll be happy to send you a video or any resources that I've created. All right, this is my email. This is my personal email. You are welcome to write that down and email me as much as you would like. If you ever lose that, you can just go to Top Score Writing's website and email the general one and say, this is for Lisa, and my team will make sure it gets to me. Okay, although I am the author and the owner, I am out in schools all day, every day. So if you want me to come, I will be there. Just let me know. It is lisa@topscorewriting.com. All right, so when it comes to writing, okay, and it comes to, do we really need writing? There's AI, there's ChatGPT. I think it's a disservice when we don't teach kids how to get their thoughts on paper. I think it's just a skill that we all deserve to know because we have all these flying thoughts, and how can I get it on paper in an organized way? A lot of you have said, oh, I saw you on TikTok, I saw you on Instagram. I do a lot on social media. And what's crazy is I get so many messages from like prisons and jails about inmates not knowing the skill of writing and wanting that simple skill of how to, again, get these thoughts on paper. And it always boggles my mind. I'm like, how did we get to being an adult and not learn this? But then I've seen it, I'm sure you guys have seen it, especially in the last 6 to 7 years, we've kind of just pushed writing all the way to the side. So I love this quote from the writing rope. It says, it's not unusual for students who read at grade level or above to have difficulty writing well. Improving students' writing quality requires more than simply having them write more. Explicit writing instruction is necessary, and it benefits all students, even those for whom learning to write seems to come effortlessly. Basically what this means, which I'm sure you can agree with, is you can have someone that is on level or above level for reading, and they can still be a low struggling writer. And that's because although they should go hand in hand, I've read all the books too, I've gone to all the trainings, they should be just all together, but we need to separate writing for a little bit and teach the skills. And once you learn the skills and the pieces, then it all comes together. And that's the piece that I feel like we're missing. So people always say, oh, I've got high readers, I don't need this. They still need to be taught those skills of writing. And the other main thing I like is the explicit writing instruction. I am all about that. If you used my program 15 years ago, I was explicitly teaching in every single lesson, because I think there's a big difference between telling a kid you need to write an introduction paragraph that introduces the topic. What does that mean? As opposed to you need to write an introduction paragraph that starts with a hook, state your 3 reasons, and ends with a closing. Now I'm explicitly telling you exactly how to make that paragraph. Okay, and you're going to see that today as we go through each paragraph. So long story short, I'm sure you guys know my story, but I was investigated twice when I was teaching for getting all of my students, they were all ELL and ESE, to pass the state writing test. We got 100%. And that kind of, at the time, I thought it was like the worst thing ever. Now it's kind of cool to share that story. But basically, state came in, and we were the only school to get 100% in the state of Florida, and we were the lowest Title I F school in my county. And so it kind of became this big thing. The first year, they were kind of like, what's going on? They asked us a few questions and say, you're cleared. The second year, they came out with their team. It was a whole district thing. It was like a 2-week investigation. It was on the news, the newspaper, they made this whole thing about it. I got mad one day and started to go in the comments, and this was like 20 years ago when you couldn't edit comments on like the newspaper, and I spelled a word wrong. And then 100 comments came, she teaches writing, she doesn't know how to spell. And I couldn't edit it, and then my mom jumped on, it was a whole fight, and so don't ever do all that on social media. But that was back in the day, and so I went on to become a writing coach, and then I was a writing specialist for my district for many years. And then it wasn't until I was on like baby number 3 that I left the district to go teach a job teaching with virtual school. And every principal I'd ever worked with was like, hey, can you write this down? And so I made a binder. I hole punched it. I bought like a cool electric hole puncher, which back in the day was like very expensive. And I made little binders with my kids and my husband. I didn't think anything of it. Flash forward 4 or 5 years into it, I've got 500 binders on my living room floor, and I'm like, maybe this is going to be legit. And so it ended up, now we are a nationwide company and actually in 4 other countries as well. So I tell that story, thank you, because I want you to know I'm 100% an educator. I also own my own school, a private school in my community. So if I'm not in your school, I'm in my school or with my kids. And I joke that my blood runs educator. So I'm here to make your life easier and to make sure your students are successful. So I'm going to be going through simple ways to plan, simple essay structure, progress monitoring, and my favorite, how to make writing fun. Because I've always done writing, I think I'm the queen of that, because I used to have a tutoring center, and if you've never been an after-school writing tutor, it might be the worst position in the world, because they're mad that it's after school and you're doing writing. Like, no kid came to me happy. So besides throwing candy at them, I came up with every way to make writing fun. Are all of you Florida teachers in here? Is anyone out of state? Okay, cool. So this is specifically for Florida. They released a 90-page document a couple days ago, and my team went through it, so I'm just going to share some things with you. Your spring writing scores are about to come out, okay? They're saying mid-July. This is the information they are giving us. It was a hybrid scoring, meaning humans and AI, okay? Their AI system is called AS, Automated Scoring, and the way that it worked for spring, and it will work moving forward, is this automatic scoring will score the paper to like, AI robots, I guess, whatever you want to call them, 2 times. And besides those scores, it's also going to give a confidence score. Meaning, if this AI gave it an 8 and this AI got an 8, the confidence score would be high, right? But if this one gave it an 8, this one gave it a 4, the confidence score would be low. If the confidence score is low, it goes to a human. Okay? And up to 40% are being scored by humans. So the other thing is, if you don't know how they did this, we gave a field test the previous year. They took that field test and scored it by humans, teachers, and then they trained AI for a year on those tests. Okay? So I know that all sounds crazy. I still don't agree with it, but it is what it is. Okay? So we just know that that's the scoring process. It kind of makes me happy that now there's a confidence score in there, so at least when they're not matching. Because I don't know if you all noticed last year, but when scores came out, we had a whole bunch of 3s, 6, 9s, and 12s, and no in between, which didn't make any sense, right? So hopefully this year we're going to see it more aligned to what it should be. There's also 7 reasons a student can get a 0. Okay, before it used to be 3. The common ones that you guys know: they didn't write enough, they're off topic, written in a different language, copied, if they can't read it or understand it, or if the kid just writes, I don't want to take this test. You know those kids? Especially middle school and high school, that's very common. So anything like that would be the reason they would get a 0. All of this is on the Florida Department of Education website as well. The other thing is now, did anyone teach back in FCAT day? Okay. That's when I taught too. So remember, we used to get the CD of papers after. It was the best thing ever, right? Because you got to see, okay, this kid got a 4 and that's what they wrote. So you could compare and know exactly what the state was looking for. Sometimes I'd look at a 6 because the 6 used to be highest, and I'd be like, I would have given that a 4, right? But the state gave it a 6, and then we kind of tore it apart and figured out why. Well, now you're going to get those papers, okay? And so are the parents. The parents are going to have access to them too. And so you're going to get the papers, you're going to get the score, and then they also release new anchor sets. So you guys know every year, or not every year, but the state releases sample papers or anchor papers, depending on what year you taught. They just released new ones last week, okay? So they've updated them. Now, have they officially come out and said, we are counting writing next year? No, but they sure put out a 90-page document with a whole bunch of new ideas and new things they're implementing, so we can all assume it's going to happen because they did say it was. This is the site that the parents can go on to download the actual papers. They also not only give the score, they give a comparison to your district scores and your state scores. So they're really doing a good job of breaking it down, because last year we weren't sure what was going on. We just got a score and there was nothing else said, and then they went a year without counting it. So I feel like they're back on their game and have a plan now with scoring. And then what if a teacher or school thinks that a response was scored inaccurately? Now they have a way for you to submit a score inquiry so you can get information. Because I know that happens a lot. I've sat with schools before, we've looked at the papers, and we've been like, how in the world did this get a 0? It's actually good. Or how did this get a 4? It has all, and you can get a score inquiry and they'll write you back. Okay, and then last, I already went over this, but they did release the new score papers, the scoring samplers. This is what I would do if I was teaching, and I already did it, and I'm not even in the classroom. I printed the new anchor sets yesterday, put them in a binder, because just like the state does, that's what you want to use to teach from, and you want to use to score papers, right? Rubrics are great, right? We can all agree that rubrics are very vague. All right, these are what the state uses. If you do not know that, they study these sample papers, and that's what they use in addition to the rubrics, but that's their comparison as they're scoring papers. Okay, and that's what AI has been trained on as well. All right, let me get into the good stuff. So that's the Florida updates for you as they come out. If you guys are not on my email list, I'll show you how to join that at the end. I am always putting out all the new information the state releases. So the biggest problem as a mom and an educator is kids got a bunch of ideas, and it's how to get them on paper in an organized way that makes sense, right? There's a big difference between just putting your ideas on paper. I always give the example, even like when my daughter, who's going to third grade, when she was in first grade, the teacher said, read a book and write a book report. But there was no structure behind how to write the book report. She could tell me about the book, why she liked the book, her favorite part of the book, but she had no idea how to get it on paper. And to be honest, I didn't either, because the teacher didn't give a structure. So I came up with a structure, and I told her, hey, give me a sentence about the main idea of the book, then give me some details in the middle, and at the end, tell me why it's your favorite. I told her that, and she got all her ideas out like that. She just needed a structure, a way to follow. So that's my job, because that's how you get creative writers. That's how you get writers that can find their personality within their writing, their voice, and express it through writing. But we have to show them how. So I'm gonna start with non-text based, okay? If you've never used my curriculum, my number one, whether you use my curriculum or not, my number one suggestion when you're teaching writing is to start with non-text based. I know the state's text based, but let me tell you what happens. Everyone jumps into teaching quotes and paraphrasing and citing and elaborative techniques, and then we teach all of it, and then we say, write it in a paragraph, and our kids have no idea that a paragraph is set up with a transitional order phrase, a topic sentence, supporting details. They don't know that structure. With non-text based, you can teach that structure. Once they've learned the pieces of the paragraph, then you teach text-based, and now we're just putting in the pieces that we've already learned, okay? It'll change everything if you just start with non-text-based writing. Now, if you're in fourth grade and up, this would be 3-4 weeks to be in the school year. That's it. It's just a little, hey, we're back. Let's go over some foundational skills, some simple structure, and then we'll go into our text-based. If you're in K through 3, you spend as much time as you need in foundations, because there is no point in jumping into text-based if they don't know the simple structure of each paragraph. Okay, so it's really important. So this is called an IRC outline. I stands for introduction, R1 is reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, conclusion, and then for each reason there's an A and a B, which is just a supporting detail. This is their roadmap, and for every kid that tells you, I don't need to plan, it's in my head, no, you need to plan. And I'm not taking your paper and giving you a score unless you plan. Okay, even though I hate that the state writes this is not scored on the bottom of the planning sheet, right? I tell them that's a lie, and I know the state lady and it is scored. It's not, but we have to make them plan, okay? They have to get their thoughts on paper. So let me show you an example of this filled out. Let's say I'm doing a simple prompt about favorite activity, okay? Very simple, okay? This is your foundations, non-text based. So let's say I pick basketball as my favorite activity. Whatever you pick, you put on the I line and the C line. Okay, if I would have picked cheerleading, I would have put cheerleading and cheerleading. If this prompt was favorite animal and I picked dog, I would have put dog and dog. Whatever your main topic is you pick, you write on the I line and the C line. Then you come up with 3 reasons why basketball is your favorite activity. Well, I can shoot the ball, I can dribble the ball, and I can win. Okay, then for each reason, you give 2 examples or details about that reason. So for shooting, I can shoot a 3-pointer, and I can shoot by dribbling, or by dunking. For dribbling, I can dribble down the court, and I can dribble in between my legs. For winning, I can win a championship, and I can win a trophy. Now, this is your 5-paragraph essay. The kids are never gonna have to say, what do I write in this paragraph? Because guess what? The first paragraph is gonna introduce my topic. The second paragraph, I'm gonna say I like basketball because I can shoot. Then I'm gonna talk about shooting a 3-pointer and talk about dunking the ball. My next paragraph, I'm gonna say, also I like basketball because dribbling. I'm gonna talk about dribbling on the court and dribbling in between my legs. Same thing for R3. So does that make sense? This is the roadmap, and the kids are never going to have to say, what do I write? You're literally turning these words into sentences, and that's your essay. Okay, it's that simple. Will we make it better? Yeah. Will we fancy it up? Yeah. But this is the beginning. If this is the stages of writing, this is step 1. This is the very beginning. And their sentences are going to be short and choppy, and they're not going to be great, and you're like, this is horrible. But guess what? If you can get the sentences out of them, we can make them better. Right? It's got to get it out of you and set up in that right structure. So let's start with the first paragraph. I'm going to walk you through each paragraph very quickly. And then we'll move on to text-based. Before I do that real quick, I just want to show you, this is the planning for 2nd and up, okay, 2nd through 12th. Does anyone K and 1 in here? Okay, for my K and 1 teachers, we do the same planning. This is my narrative example, but for expository, it still says I, just pretend it does, this is narrative, I, R1, R2, and C. It's the same outline. We just start with pictures. So what's your favorite sport or activity? Basketball, you would draw a picture of basketball. Why do you like it? I can draw a picture of somebody shooting the ball. You start with pictures. 1st grade, you start with words. Depending on kindergarten, 1st grade, if they're higher or lower, you can go back and forth. Those words turn into simple sentences, right? If your first reason you like basketball is because shooting, you can put first, I shoot the ball, whatever they can do. First or second, dribble. Even if it's simple, just getting them to learn that structure. Okay, so the way that I wrote my K through 12 curriculum is the same structure and same language from kindergarten through 12th grade. So I always give the example of, you may call it a hook, I may call it a grabber, she may call it an opener. It's all the same thing. But if we can all agree to call it the same thing, that's how kids are going to grow as writers. Because I watched my own kid who just graduated high school in 2nd grade learn one way to write, and that teacher taught a 5-paragraph essay and called it a hook. Then in 3rd grade, that teacher taught it different. She taught a 3-paragraph essay and called it a grabber. Then in 4th grade, she taught however many paragraphs she wanted and called it an opener. And every year he restarted. He wasn't growing at all. He was relearning a new way to write. We can't do that. They're never going to grow. And the whole point is to be prepared for middle school, high school, and then college. So if the school adopts one way, it's not that my way is the right way. Whatever way you choose, if everyone sticks with that same language and structure, year to year, the kids will be like, oh yeah, the IRC outline, yeah, I know how to do that. I've been doing that since kindergarten. All right, let's start with the first paragraph, right? Let's look at our map. The I paragraph, this is the introduction paragraph. Now, there's 100 ways to write an introduction paragraph. This is one way, and it's the most basic way in the world. But again, if this is our steps to writing, this is step 1. Give me a hook, state your 3 reasons, and a closing statement. I'm giving them actual concrete pieces of how to build an introduction paragraph. Okay? You can see I always color code. My hook is in green. My 3 reasons are in blue. My closing statement is in red. Every kid can do this. Okay? It may not be the best, but every kid, when you teach them these pieces, and if you've never color coded with writing, you're going to see light bulbs going off like that. Because suddenly you've not only taught the pieces, they can see the pieces. Okay? Just so you know, I always make the kids write in pencil, okay, and highlight. I don't have them write in colored pens or markers because I don't want the color coding to become part of the writing process. It's a self-assessment editing piece. It's after. I know they have to type, guys. I'm just saying, in the beginning, I do paper and pencil, then I transition them into typing. So this is a very easy introduction paragraph. I will tell you, my oldest son, who just graduated high school, he was in the high school that had the ACE program. Are you guys familiar with the ACE program? Okay, very prestigious program, very hard classes, very high incorporating writing in every class, even in math, right? There's lots of writing. And so obviously my oldest has been doing top score since he was born. But this never changed. His ACE teacher used my program, and it was so funny because that was a big thing for me. I knew it would work, but I wanted to see it in action, so I would go in there a lot. And she goes, Lisa, this never changes. We call it a thesis, and we make it fancier, and we break it up into multiple sentences, and we have more advanced hooks, but that structure never changes, right? So and think about your college research papers. It may not be exactly 3 sentences, but it's the same structure. You're going to open it with some sort of attention-grabbing hook. You're going to mention your topics or your overall topic, and then you've got to close it out. So the structure they're learning is going to be something they're going to use forever, right? So that's a very simple introduction. All right, let me show you the middle. Watch this real quick. This is going to be your topic sentence. Then you're going to write about three-pointer and write about dunking. So if you're just looking at colors, my topic sentence is in red. My A, which is my first supporting detail sentences, are in green, and my B, which is my second supporting details, are in blue. I just took my planning and I made those words into sentences. Now, if you have a kid in first grade, the way that I would teach it was I would say, give me at least one sentence about A and one sentence about B. Second grade, give me at least 2 sentences about A, 2 sentences about B. Third grade, fourth grade, and until I get to middle school, we're writing about 4 to 5. Now, people will say, why do you say a number? They should write however many they want. You're right, but if I don't say a number, I will get 1 for every grade, right? They're like, I wrote about A, wrote about B. No. So they have to learn that skill of elaboration. So I always say, like, if for fourth grade, I said I need at least 3 to 4 sentences about A. You can do 5, 6, but I need at least 3 to 4. And at least 3 to 4 about B. And when they say, I don't know what to write, I'm like, pretend an alien just dropped from the space and knows nothing about shooting a three-pointer. Teach them, right? So and at first, I'm just going to tell you, they're going to put, I can shoot. I like to shoot. I shoot good, right? And you're like, oh my gosh. Be like, yay, you got 100%. And then the next lesson will make those sentences better. Right? We can take those and add details and make them longer and better sentences. But if they can just learn the structure and pieces, you guys are going to see writing becomes so much easier. All right, let's go back. My next paragraph, second, I like basketball because they can dribble. Then I'm going to talk about the court and in between my legs. If you look here, here's my second, I like basketball because you can dribble the ball. Then my A's are about court and green. And dribbling in between my legs is in blue. Okay, and you see R3 as well. I have my topic sentence in red, my A's in green, my B's in blue. Does that make sense, that structure? Okay, it's very simple for you all. It's very simple for the kids. If you work with ESE and ELL, I promise the structure and color coding is going to change the game. They are going to pick up on it. I actually, in my class, my lowest ESE picked up on the structure before my higher level students. It was crazy. It was like my first years of teaching, and then I was like, there's something about that structure and color coding that grabs and all of a sudden it clicks. Okay, so this is a very easy way to introduce writing. Now, again, if you're K through 3, you could do this from August to December. I'm all about repetition and practice, okay? We can all agree that that's the #1 thing in the world that works for anything, right? Doing it over and over again. So we will keep a simple skill like planning. If I was a second grade teacher, I would do planning probably for 3 weeks. Nothing but planning. Favorite activity, favorite animal, person you like, place you like to go to. And we would just plan, practice that brainstorming. And I love when I go into classrooms, I model a lot. And let's say I'm doing like favorite animal, I'll say to the kids, I'll be like, you know what? I have like 5 favorite animals. Can I pick all of them? Like, no. I'm like, no, I have to brainstorm and narrow it down to 1. Because that's a process too for kids, right? Why do you like them? Well, I like them because this. Okay, well, we got to narrow it down, right? So it's just, that's a skill within itself, is that brainstorming and planning. I do also want to say real quick, I'm talking a lot about 5-paragraph essays, okay? There's no rule, and there has never been a rule you have to write 5 paragraphs. I will tell you, for the last 20 years, the common trend with the state is 4 to 5 paragraphs, okay? Most high-scoring papers are 4 to 5 paragraphs. Unless you are a very advanced writer, which happens, you can write a 3-paragraph essay. It's hard because that middle paragraph, you got to structure it right? Your lower level writers will jump around. Here's the thing. Again, I'm going to keep referring to this, our steps in writing. If we're talking about the beginning steps, I teach 5 paragraphs. As you grow as a writer, then you should be able to fluctuate, right? If I start in 3rd grade teaching you, 4th grade, we're getting better, 5th grade. By 6th grade, you should be able to look at your text and your prompt and decide, I'm going to do a 4-paragraph. I'm going to do a 6-paragraph. You should be able to adjust. Like my son in the ACE classes, they were doing, 25-paragraph research papers. But it takes an advanced writer. You've got to have skills and years of working on it. So I do teach 4 or 5 paragraphs a lot in the beginning stages, and then I expect them as they're growing to be able to fluctuate. Now, I go into a lot of middle schools where I am starting at square one, okay? And we spend 6th, 7th, and 8th just learning those basic skills. And then when they go to high school, they can do the fancy stuff. So it just depends on where the kids are as well. All right, and the last paragraph I want to show you is the conclusion paragraph. Again, there are probably, there There are probably 100 ways to do this. This is one concrete way. I tell them to restate those 3 reasons or topics, give me a thought or feeling about the overall topic, and then an ending sentence. Okay, you can change this up, you can add sentences, you can call this something different, doesn't matter. As long as we're giving them those pieces. Okay, because again, I've been in a lot of classrooms, the teachers say, write a conclusion, 3 sentences, conclude the essay. The kids are like, what is that? And how many kids put the end? Hope you like my essay. Like, this is not a story. So if I did skip over this, I wanted to show you real quick. A middle paragraph is gonna have a topic sentence, depending on your grade level, 3 to 4 sentences about A, 3 to 4 sentences about B, and a wrap up. That would be your structure. Now, I'm like the queen of acronyms in my class. I always had, a little easy way for the kids to remember things. I used to call this T3A, 3BW. All my kids knew T3A, 3BW. So T topic sentence, 3A, at least 3 about A, 3B, at least 3 about B, W wrap up. What's funny is those kids I taught are now like 30 with families, and we're all friends on Facebook, which is really weird. But they will, like, after college, or like when they were going to, like, if some of them are teachers, took the general knowledge test, they're like, I remember T3A through BW. That's not out of my head. I'm like, good. That's like a forever structure that every kid can use. And if you're in 2nd grade, you could say T2A to BW. It just helps them remember how to set up those middle paragraphs. So if you're looking at colors, again, you can see I always have like a little key, but my topic sentence is in red, my A's are in green, B's are in blue, and then that last wrap up is in purple. Okay, that is non-text-based writing. I'm going to keep looking at time so I don't run out. This is your non-text-based writing. Think foundational skills, the very beginning stages. Once they've learned this, text-based writing is going to be so much easier. Okay, because then I pitch it to them like, hey, now instead of coming up with your own stuff, you just have to read text and circle stuff and find topics in the text. We all know it's harder, but to them, I'm like, you don't have to think anymore. Just go read and find topics. And then they just pull quotes and they paraphrase, and they're not good at paraphrasing, but we try. But here's kind of the flow K through 12. Pictures, words, sentences, paragraphs. Okay, this is from my K-1 curriculum. Okay, again, same language, same structure, it's just we're taking it way down and building. And depending on where the kids are, we may just do pictures. And then it may just be more conversation. So I've modeled in 1st grade classrooms, and within 4 weeks had them writing a basic essay. Nothing grand. I'm just saying, like, at least instead of just one paragraph, we at least have 1 or 2 sentences per paragraph, and they start learning organization and structure. Okay, so if you look here, this is a full text-based essay. I just love this visual real quick. If you see my roadmap, aka my planning, you can see the colors, how that turns into the paragraph. So when the kids say I don't need to plan, I love showing this one because I'm like, well, how are you gonna know what to write? Right? Because my roadmap just told me every paragraph and what I'm going to be writing about. Okay, so this is a good visual for them. So text-based writing, okay? When we move into expository text-based, every lesson you teach is going to have passages, right? 2 to 4 passages in a text set. The planning is still the same, which is why if you've taught the foundations, this is going to be so easy. The only difference is instead of R's for reasons, I have changed it to T's for topic. Because if you have to write an expository essay about the habitats of alligators, you're not going to have reasons, right? So we just have topics. Now, when we go to argumentative writing, we'll go back to R's because we have reasons. So when it comes to text-based writing, it's an ITC outline for expository, an IRC for argumentative. Also, I do want to say too, that part I just taught you, the foundations, which is section 1 in my curriculum, once they've learned that, they really don't ever need it again. It's kind of a one and done, right? Once you have the foundations. So year to year, you may find yourself reviewing a couple days, but other than that, you don't ever need foundations again. Once you've got them, you're good to go. So like if 3rd grade at your school conquered section 1 in foundations, 4th grade would be able to do a quick review, maybe 3-4 days, and then jump into text-based. And they would have so when you introduce ITC, they go, oh, that's same as IRC, got it, done. They already know it. Okay, so let's say that there's 2 passages on alligators, and the prompt is write an expository essay about alligators. Same exact planning, but here's the rule with text-based. Every single word has to come from the text. That's my rule, and you better prove it to me by showing where you found it. Okay, now, here's the problem. Some kids, like I was in one school, and the kid's like, yeah, my dad taught me all about alligators. I know, and he named some fact. And he put it as his T3. I was like, yeah, no, this is text-based, not your dad's facts essay. So you need to find it in the text. And so a lot of them will try to fill in because they don't want to have to look for something in the text, something they saw on YouTube or on social media or something they told. So remind them it has to come from the text. Now, I know they're typing, okay? So depending on your level of kids, you may say, I'm not starting with this, but I'm big on pencil and paper in the beginning, and I'm big on you need to learn this process of finding your topics and labeling them. I'll tell you why labeling is so important. Labeling is important because when they go to type their essay, if they don't know where they found that topic, they're going to get there and need to pull a quote, and they're going to spend 3 minutes going, oh my gosh, where did it talk about that? Scrolling, right? So what I do, I'm going to give you a little tidbit of how I do this with typing. When we're doing paper and pencil, if they read these 2 paragraphs and they pick species as their topic 1, they put a box, they label it T1 species, right? This is how I do it in the beginning. When we transition to typing, if you found species in paragraph 1 and 2, you would simply put underneath T1, you put a P and you put 1 and 2. That way, when you go to type the essay, you now scroll right to paragraph 1 and 2, right? So it's the same idea. It's just when I teach paper and pencil, I teach it so they learn this process. I even have them label their supporting details. So in this one, up here talked about the American alligator. Down here talked about the Chinese alligator. That's my A and B. And then I go over and you can see I put it on my planning. Okay? When I go to the next one, I found that they're a type of reptile in paragraphs 3 and 4. My A, this is all about cold-blooded. My B, this is all about the different alligator eggs. So I put it there. So everything is coming from the text. And again, we move to typing, we'll just make a little note, because remember, I think you all have taught writing, but if not, on the state test, they do get a planning sheet paper in front of them. So they can put a little note of what paragraph they found it in. I know that sounds silly, but even as a mom, that's important to me because I don't want my kid reading, finding a great topic, and then stressing because they got to scroll up and down and try to look for where it is. If we can just put a little note, hey, I found my topic 1 in P1 and 2, I know I just go back there. It makes it so much easier. And that's part of training on the typing part of things too, training how to take that online test, which you can get to later in the year. Okay, so they'll go through and they'll do the same exact planning we did before. It's just everything has to come from the text. I have box paper, which I gave you. I'll go through your folder in a minute. I gave you that. You can also download it online for free. This is going to be a lifesaver for those kids that don't know how to organize and or the kids that need to learn how you build an essay, meaning you may start with 1 sentence each. And then the next lesson, build on. Let's add some A sentences. The next lesson, let's add some B. Especially for your lower grades, that building, okay, is helpful to break it up and then to see how you build the paragraph. Box paper helps with, it's a visual, right, of how to separate paragraphs. I get those kids, you ever get the kids that do one long essay that's all 1 paragraph, right? And you're like, where the heck is these your topics? I don't even know. I'm trying to read. I can't read your handwriting. I think that's topic 2. It might be topic 3, right? Sometimes I'll give them their essay back with plain box paper, and I'm like, rewrite this on the box paper so I can see. Right? And they're like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. But then from there, they learn you got to somehow separate transition words, a space, something, so I can see it organized. But this is very helpful for your struggling writers. Again, something about that visual of breaking it up. Also, when it comes to writing a 5-paragraph essay, I don't ever tell kids in the beginning writing a 5-paragraph essay. That's a little overwhelming, and they all shut down. So we start with box paper, and we just work on different pieces. And then before they know it, they're like, oh, I wrote a whole essay. Yeah, you didn't even know it. So I like to kind of take the building approach. All my lessons build upon the next. Okay, I intentionally wrote it like that, so everything just keeps building, so it's not overwhelming for them. My approach to writing is much different than any other curriculum because I take each piece and we work on that skill over and over again through repetition and practice. So we're going to work on planning over and over and over, then hooks over and over and over, then the whole introduction over, each little piece so the kids can conquer those pieces, right, master those pieces, and then put it all together. And it's just not as overwhelming for them. Okay, when it comes to the introduction paragraph for text-based, same structure as we went over in foundations, right? Hook, 3 topics, closing statement. Same structure. So they're gonna be like, yeah, I already know this, right? I also give another option in text-based where sometimes kids struggle with closing statements. That's where they're like, you know when kids can't think of anything and everyone puts that's awesome or it's so cool? That's like the go-to line. If I'd rather have nothing than that. So I tell them, you can do it this way, or if you're struggling with a closing statement, you can just do a hook and then name your 3 topics, just split it into 2 to 3 sentences. The whole point is most introduction paragraphs that score high are 3 to 4 sentences. Most introduction paragraphs just in general teaching have always been 3, 4, 5 sentences, right? So we just don't want it to be 1 sentence where it's just a hook. So I always tell them, you can break it up this way as well. Now you may say, but Lisa, how do you do the middle paragraphs with text-based, right? Because you just can't write 3 about A, 3 about B. It's the same structure. We're still doing topic sentence, 3 to 4A, 3 to 4B, and wrap up. The only difference is our A's and B's are coming from the text. They're a mix of quotes, a mix of paraphrasing, and a mix of own thoughts and ideas. Okay, so your A's and B's are still part of it. We're still doing 3 to 4 about each. It's just going to be a mix of those elaborative techniques. All right, so sometimes they'll pull a quote. Quotes are easy, guys, right? So I always tell kids you should all have a quote in your middle paragraphs. All right, it's just a no-brainer. It's easy. It kind of gives you that check of you have a quote. Some of my more advanced writers will put some quotes in some middle, some not have it. You don't have to have it. It's just an easy way to kind of check off an elaborative technique. Paraphrasing, I will tell you right now, I don't have any secret besides doing it over and over and over and over again. I always suggest that my lower grades concentrate on that skill, like put a lot of emphasis on it, because it's so hard in 4th grade to teach paraphrasing in that 6 months, right? It's just a hard skill. It's like doing a summary, right, of a book. You ever ask your kids, give me a summary, and they give you like 3 specific details? Like, that's not a summary, right? It's just it's a skill that you have to do over and over again. So I have free online, they're called paraphrasing task cards. You can print them out, cut them up, make them like a center or an activity, and it's just a bit of information. They have to paraphrase it into their own words, and I have that for all grade levels. Okay, so this is a text-based topic 1 paragraph. Again, if you're just looking at colors, my topic is in red, my A's are in blue, B's are in green, and my wrap-up's in purple. Also, if you ever look at my stuff online or you see my free lessons online, don't ever get caught up in my colors. Sometimes my hooks are red, sometimes they're purple, sometimes they're blue. I don't have a color coding system. I get a lot of emails about that. I don't know what colors you have. I don't know what colors I have. I don't want to make people have to have certain colors. This is what I do. Whatever skill we're working on, I get that many colors. So like if I'm doing middle paragraphs, I know I need those 4 colors. I need a color for topic, a color for A color for B, and a color for W. If I'm doing introduction paragraph, I need 3 colors. 1 for hook, 1 for 3 reasons, 1 for closing, right? So it just depends. I do have teachers that create a color coding system for their classroom, and that works wonders, because then you know what colors you have, you know what colors your students have, and you can say our hooks are always highlighted in yellow or whatever. My A's are always highlighted in pink. You could do that, but in my lessons, you're going to see different colors everywhere. Okay, and then if you look here, this is an example full essay, text-based expository. And I know you can't read words, but this is another way to color code. This is teaching elaborative techniques. Every time you see blue, that's a quote. Every time you see green, that's something that's paraphrased. And every time you see pink is an own thought or idea. I love showing this to students. I also love making them color code, because when they get done, I'll say, did you quote, paraphrase, and own thoughts and ideas? They say, yeah. If I say, go highlight quotes in blue, paraphrase in green, own thoughts in pink, they'll start going and they'll be like, ooh, I don't have any own thoughts and ideas. And it's a self-assessment, right? Because now they see, ooh, I didn't put any own thoughts and ideas. Let me add that real quick. So it's a nice way for them to self-assess, do I have a balance of techniques? It's also a nice visual for the teacher, right? I can walk around real quick and see, do you have all those colors? I also love it because if they get done highlighting and there's all blue and green and 1 pink, I'm like, is that a balance? No. Do you have to have the equal amounts? No, but the state says balance, right? So there's text-based, which is quotes and paraphrasing, and then there's your own thoughts and ideas. All right, which we all know, quotes, like I said, are easy. Paraphrasing, they can kind of do. They think they change 1 word. I'm like, you copied and changed 1 word. So paraphrasing I got to work on. And then own thoughts and ideas is probably the hardest, right? Because they have to completely come up with on their own, which I'm going to show you a strategy for that. Okay, so middle paragraphs for text-based, whether it's expository or argumentative, same structure. Topic sentence, A's, B's, wrap up. It's just your A's and B's are a mix of quotes, paraphrasing, and own thoughts and ideas. And then conclusion, same thing as before as well. This is why you're going to see me saying the same thing. This is why foundations is so important, because they've already learned this structure. They're just applying it to text-based writing. All right. Another big thing about the way that I teach writing, besides the curriculum part of it, and again, regardless of what program you use, I highly suggest having some form of this. And this is my form of progress monitoring, meaning most curriculum, no matter what subject you're teaching, have a pre-test and a post-test, right? What bothers me about that is you give a pre-test and then you don't know how your kids are doing really. You don't know their strengths and weaknesses until the post-test. To me, that's too far, right? I just spent 8 weeks and now I find out you're struggling with this. I rather progress monitor throughout. However, if you guys know me, ever heard me talk, I don't want any more work on my teachers. So I have built-in progress monitoring, which is just simple little mini quizzes throughout the curriculum. So if you've been teaching introduction for 2 days, on the 3rd day, you're going to give a little quiz. I call it a skill check, right? And then if you teach planning for a few days, on the last day, you're going to give a little skill check. It's just a way to progress monitor as you're going through the skills, because as you fill out this skill tracker form, if you see, oh, my kids are struggling with this skill, you know that you can stop where you are and reteach. So this is a skill tracker form. You can see up here. You have it in your folders. Let's look at that real quick together so you guys can see it up close. I think, let me see what page it's on. Do you mind me borrowing real quick? I gave you guys a whole bunch of stuff. So if you go to like the 4th or 5th page, it says Section 2 Skill Tracker. Let me see the exact page. It's the 5th page. Section 2, and then Skill Tracker. It's the 5th page. Okay. So if you look at this skill tracker, you can see there's a pre-test and there's a post-test, but in between every few lessons, there's a quiz. I call it a skill check, right? And what I tell teachers is, as they're taking the quiz, because I'm not about them taking quizzes and taking papers home to score. I will tell you guys in a few minutes how I'm against that and in other ways you can do this. So as they're taking the quiz, you're walking around putting an A, because you're going to be able to tell, right? If they're taking an introduction quiz, you'll know by the second sentence if they got it or not, right? So you're going to put, and it says up here a key, you're going to put P for proficient, A for approaching, and then N for needs development. So let's say on that skill check of prompts, I get done and 16 of my 20 kids have an N. I'm not going on to the next lesson. I need to reteach prompts. There's no point of going on if they didn't get prompts. Or after a few weeks, if I look and I see under prompts, there's 8 kids with an N. Under planning, there's 7 kids with an N. And under introduction, there's 4 kids with an N. I now know I'm pulling skill groups this week, and I know exactly what skills I'm working on. Right? Or if my reading coach comes in and says, hey, I have 30 minutes on Thursday, what can I help with? Hey, can you take these 6 kids and work on introduction? It's much more specific. Instead of what do we usually do? Oh yeah, these 4 are low, can you work with them? No, work with these 6 on this skill specifically. And it's just an easy way to progress monitor without having to think about it. And it's an easy one glance kind of paper like, okay, I see how my class is doing, we're doing good with this genre, or I think I'm going to slow down in this genre. Every time I teach a skill, they're still struggling. Okay, so skill trackers, having some sort of progress monitoring tool is huge. But my absolute favorite is the next page. If you have not seen my videos, I always put out videos on stop scoring papers and taking them home. And everyone's like, please tell my principal that. So let me explain before you go back and tell your principal that Lisa said this. I get that a couple of times a year we need to score papers for data, right? I get there's probably a baseline, maybe a mid-year, end year. You got to have some data. Sometimes your district requires it. I know in Palm Beach County they have their own assessment that they do. Broward does too, where the teachers have to score it. I get that 2 to 3 times a year. But all the other times they're writing, there's absolutely no need for you to take the papers home and score them. Because in the end, when the kid comes back and you say you got a 6 out of 12, means nothing. But if you come back and say, hey, your paper looked good, but I noticed you didn't cite in any of your paragraphs, and your middle paragraph is only 3 sentences long, let's talk about that. Now I'm specific, because the score doesn't mean anything. The kid needs to know the skills. The other problem with scoring is, if you score it, there's no way you're going home and scoring it that night, because we all have lives. So it's going to take a few days, right? If you ship it out to be scored, that's going to take weeks. No one remembers what they ate for lunch yesterday, let alone what they wrote. We need a way to score while they're taking the test and conference the next day, right? The next day they walk in, we conference about that test you took. And that's why I created these informal assessment checklists. So there is one of these for every genre in every grade level. Okay, so it's specific to the grade level and specific to the genre. So I have 5 or 6 in every single grade level kit. Let me explain how this works. You're going to put, before, let's say they're going to take a practice test. You taught all the skills, today's practice test day, right? You're going to put all their names here, and hopefully you've got a little more time, because usually we only have 20, 30 minutes. Hopefully on practice test day you get 60 minutes, or you're going to do it over 2 days, because we know how that works. But you put this on a clipboard, and you walk around as they're taking the test, and you are just putting checks and X's. Nothing else. You walk up to this kid, and you're going, okay, they have their introduction, they have hook, 3 topics, closing, good, they get a check. This student missing closing, X. The whole 60 minutes you're doing this. You're gonna go by every kid probably 15, 20 times, right? Just quick. Oh, no, missing transition, T1, missing X. That's all you're doing, checks and X's. By the end of that test, you know the strengths and weaknesses of not only every student, but your class as a whole. Because now, if you see a whole bunch of X's here, you're like, let me go do a mini lesson on that skill. Or if you see some X's here, some X's here, let me pull small groups on Friday with these specific skills. There's no need to score the papers. Now the kids come in the next day and you conference right away. And the way that I write my conferencing lessons is there's an activity for the kids to do while you call them up in conference. I know I'm running out of time when we talk fast. But here's what I have to say about conferencing real quick. I live in the real world, and if any of you taught back in the day, I read every conferencing book, because I had to, and I went to every conferencing conference, and all I ever learned was you need to sit with every kid for 15 to 20 minutes and have this long, drawn-out conversation about the good and the bad, and then followed up with the good, right? Little sandwich thing. Okay, we don't have time for that, so when I say conferencing, I'm talking about 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes tops. I say that every kid has a TikTok brain. Right? You ever watch a TikTok that's 3-4 parts? Come on, by the second part we're done, right? We don't have time. 3 minutes is very long on TikTok. This is how our kids' brains are. So if you're talking 3, 4, 5 minutes, I promise they're not listening, okay? They want quick. Just like they get DoorDash like that, they want quick. They want it short and sweet. You know, I write like my kids this long text, love you so much, hope you're having a good day. They write K. K? Like, I can't even get an O in front, just K. Like, they just want short and quick. So I'm going to tell you an example in a minute of how you conference. Get them all started on an activity, and then you're going to take that sheet, and you're going to see that there's 5 X's under introduction. You're going to say, okay, you, come here. And you're going to have whatever table you have. All right, here's your papers. Listen, papers are good, but your introductions, you only had 2 sentences. You have to put that closing. And hopefully you have an anchor chart up. You're going to say, look at this anchor chart. You have to have hook, 3 topics, closing. You guys have to make sure you have a closing. Let me show you an example. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, take your papers back to your seat and go rewrite your introduction and add a closing. Come back to me. Okay, boom, they go off. Next week, you 3, come here. Okay, papers are great, but you didn't cite. Let's look at the citing the anchor chart. You go over citing, 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds. Okay, go back, take this blank piece of paper, rewrite just your T1. We never rewrite a whole essay. Just your topic 1 paragraph, and add citations and come back to me. Those 5 will come back at some point. Those 3, it's like a revolving door. That's the way I explained it. I used to tell my principal, I'm going to be sitting all day, and it's going to be a revolving door, and they're just coming to me. And I don't ever go over everything. I give little pieces. Go try it, come back. Go try it, come back. It's not overwhelming, and no kid's going to say, ugh. No, I'm giving you one little piece, right? All right, so that's that. All right, before I get into my favorite part, and I have to end in 10 minutes, I want to introduce Alicia Cosby-Mosley. She's going to talk real quick. She is from a school that has used the program for 8+ years, and just kind of talk about using it with the teachers, the students. I just kind of wanted to get her input on that.
Good morning. Again, yes, I'm Alicia Cosby-Mosley. I'm currently the principal at Coastal Middle and High School. But my relationship with top score writing, started when I taught 3rd and 4th grade. I had come into the classroom in November. They had 2 or 3 teachers, and we had to test by February back then. I never got through past section 1, and I was a nervous wreck because I thought, there's no way these kids are going to pass. We only did section 1. But the important part to remember is that's the most important part. So that year, my students passed. I had the highest level of 4th graders who had passed that year. And it wasn't because I did something special. It was because we implemented this with fidelity. We went over it. They were sick of all the same thing, and because you do it 100 times with different topics and subjects. But when they got their scores back and we won the pizza party, that was totally terrible, by the way. But whatever, they worked really hard. That's when the kids realized that it worked. And fast forward my story, now that I'm in high school, my fourth graders are now 10th and 11th graders, my third and fourth group, and they still remember it. And so it was really great because when they got to my high school, we still use it. And they were like, oh my God, I still remember the IRC. They had used it. I have 4 children of my own. My daughter just took her test. And she's like, they had to do it on the computer, but they had like a highlight feature for them. She talked to me all day about how much it worked. So I want to give you a great example. Like if you do it, you do it with fidelity, it works. I have high schoolers that are like, this is stupid. We have to highlight. Oh, this is so lame. But they passed. And now they're all excited. And I'm like, sometimes the basics is exactly what you need. So that's what makes this curriculum so great. Thank you guys. I want to take up too much of your time.
All right, and the last part I'm going to go over, and here's the thing, I have a whole, I call it mini PDs. I don't know if any of you have seen these online, but I do, they're like 15 to 20 minutes. I've pre-recorded them. I have a whole mini PD on making writing fun. So I won't spend too much time, but I will tell you, if you don't know that highlighters make everything cool and fun, even in middle school and high school, don't let them fool you. I actually did a s'mores project at the school. Basically, the way it works is once they're done learning an essay, you have a day where they write the whole essay, and after each piece, they get it checked. So after they're done with planning, you check it. If they did it right, they get a graham cracker. When they're done with the introduction, you check it. They get it right, they get a piece of chocolate. Then T1, and you keep building the s'more. At the end, they get a whole s'more. I did it in the high school, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to go down, right? Because I was in a class that was kind of a rough crowd, and you would have thought I was handing out gold. Like, it was the greatest thing ever because it's food. And they were writing, and they were trying to get done fast. They were hungry, and I said, you got to get it done or you can't build the whole s'more. So it was this whole thing, and it worked out great. And I have that activity online for free as well. Let me tell you real quick. Well, let me show you this. If your kids are struggling with conventions, another color, because there's a lot of ways to use color coding, but this is one way. I say highlight your indent space in yellow, highlight your punctuation in blue, and highlight the capital letter at the beginning of every sentence in pink. Right? At first, you're going to have nothing to highlight because they don't do this. We all know that. They're like, oh my God. And then you start doing it enough, they'll be like, oh my gosh, she's going to make me color code this. I better remember. And then they start to remember. So this is a great one. I do not have this in the curriculum. I share this all the time in my PDs. What I want to go over with you is, and I'm just going to say these real quick. When I say make writing fun, I don't mean like a party and balloons and candy, although that'll work. But there are other ways to make writing fun that just mean different. And I'm going to give you a couple examples, and I'm going to let you go for today. One day after teaching, for so many months, and I could tell my kids were like over me, when they're just like done, you're talking and it's not going in their head. So I told my principal, I said, can I bring all of 4th grade, because we were departmentalized, I said, can I bring all of them in the cafeteria and do like a writing seminar? She said, yeah. I said, can you like call on the intercom, make it like a big deal? She goes, yeah. So I'm like, let's try this. So she says, all 4th grade students report to the cafeteria for a writing seminar. And all the kids are like, whoa. And I'm acting like I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I don't know, seminar? And I'm like, let's get clipboards. So they got clipboards, and they're walking down to the cafeteria, and they're all like, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. And so we go in there, and the principal's like, welcome to the 4th grade writing seminar. Ms. Collum's going to be your teacher. I go up on stage. I teach the exact same lesson I would have done in the classroom. Nothing different. The exact same lesson. All the other teachers are in there kind of helping me because there's 120 kids in there. And we do the activity. We get done, and I'm like, that was kind of cool. I didn't think much of it. We're at recess after lunch. Every kid is like, man, that writing seminar was awesome. How about that writing seminar day? And I'm like, it was a lesson in the cafeteria, right? But call it what you want. And I remember thinking that simple change of doing it differently, different environment, made all the difference. And I started doing writing seminars when I was a specialist in the district at all the schools. I would go in and say, give me like your 50 lowest kids, I'm gonna do a seminar. And we would do them, and they would it was just that, I don't know, seriousness of it and something different, and having the principal involved was a big thing. The other thing I would do is writing around the room. That's another simple activity. You give them the paper, the prompts, the pencils, and you say, go anywhere in the room. You can team up with someone. You can build a fort. I don't care. And you have 5 minutes to get your station, and then we're going to start. And they'd go around, and they'd go underneath their desk with their jackets over, and they'd go with their friend in the reading center, and they'd go at my desk, think they're cool. And I'd be like, okay, we're going to start. Write your essay. And they'd all be in their cool areas writing their essay just like they would at their desks. but they think it's so cool because I said you can go anywhere in the room, right? And then what did I do? I'm crouched down next to every kid having a writing conference of 30 seconds, right? Talking about it real quick, and I'm going around to every single kid. Okay, another one is table writing. I set up groups of tables around the room. You write your I paragraph at this table, your T1 paragraph at this table, T2 at this, right? So they start on like the middle floor planning, and then when they're ready to write their I, they go to this table. They can stand up, sit down, write their I. When they're ready to write T1, and they're moving around the room, two things, I'm letting you move, and I now broke apart the essay. So you're not sitting writing this long essay, you're writing each piece at a different table. So see how these things are still writing? It's just different. They think it's so much fun. Partner them up, give them a big Post-it note, tell them to write their paragraph on there. That's something, you give them markers and a big Post-it note, they think it's so cool. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to make writing fun that are just something different. Okay, I have so many other things to show you, but real quick, this is a free site we created. If you need a place for your kids to go practice typing their essays, it's tswtest.com. You upload any passage you want on the left. They can type on the right, just like the state, and then you can upload it to the computer or Google Drive. Completely free, no login, nothing. So anytime you want your kids to practice, feel free to go on that website. Okay, just like the state. And then this is my link tree, and that dot in between the R and the E is on there on purpose. That's the way that they do it. That has every free resource I've ever created. It's huge, but that's a great website. If you have Instagram, if you go on Top Score, it's in our bio. If you lose this, you can always email me. And then we have a Facebook group as well with thousands of teachers that use Top Score that just share ideas all day long. So you're welcome to join that as well. And then the last thing, if you go to my website, which is just topscoring.com, at the top it says sign up for email list. If you click on that and you put in your name and email, you're on it forever, you're good. You will get every update, every resource, every video that I put out. Okay, you just go to topscorewriting.com and you go to sign up for email list. It's very easy, takes 2 seconds. But that's your 100% assured way that you get everything from me. And that's just right up there. And then, of course, all the social media stuff that you can follow us. If you don't follow us on Instagram or Facebook, start, because I think every day we put out a tip video or a free resource. So that s'mores thing was put out last week. There's a whole cute lesson plan that's on there as well you can download with it. So thank you for coming today. I know this was a lot. I know I talk fast. All I want to say is that if any of you would like a Zoom session on this more in depth, any specific part, I'd be happy to do that. If you want myself or someone from my team to come out to your school and you're like, hey, we really struggle with middle paragraphs, we can do that as well. If you'd like a curriculum overview, whatever you guys want or need to prepare for next year, reach out to me because we'd love to jump on Zoom or even come out to your school just to give you or your administration more information to make sure you have what you need for next school year. All right? Have a great day. Thank you so much for coming.